Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, this government's proud of its track record and progress that we're making on improving freshwater quality. But this afternoon the government wants to focus on the issue of climate change, because I think members would appreciate that it is one of the most important issues of our time. The announcement by Paula Bennett, the Climate Change Minister today, that the government is proceeding to ratify the Paris Agreement is a significant step forward. There can be no single country that can resolve the climate change issue, and that is why the international negotiations are such a crucial component. And it is particularly noting that when the Kyoto Agreement was ratified, this Parliament toed and froed and debated it for more than 4 years, and in comparison, the debate has moved on and let's grab your water, Tim. Apologies, the debate has moved on, and actually there's very little controversy today on the step that Paula Bennett has taken. I'd also note with some pride that both the Kyoto Agreement that was signed by one of the original Blue-Greens, Simon Upton, and the Tim Gross's pivotal role in the Paris Agreement have actually both been under national ministers, showing the genuine progress this side of the House is able to make on this crucial issue. New Zealand is committing through the Paris Agreement to a reduction in 30% of our emissions by 2030. That is a bold and challenging task, and I would invite members of the House to read the Treasury papers about the size of the economic challenge that is required to achieve that, because some of the quite naive commitments that are made by other political parties do not take on board the reality of the size of that challenge. Mr. Speaker, I also want to note in the debate about climate change the actual numbers that show the progress has been made. If we look at emissions after the Framework Convention was signed in the years from 90 to 1999, New Zealand's emissions grew under that Shipley-Bolger government by an average of 700,000 tonne per year. If you look at the period, and David Parker's in the House, so he would note it, between 1999 and 2008, the previous Labor government, supported by the Greens, actually saw a massive increase in emissions. During that 9-year period, actually, emissions grew on average by 1.3 million tonnes per year. Actually, emissions today are lower than what they were at the peak of 2005 in gross terms and 2007 in terms of net terms. And so when I hear members opposite talking about climate change, I say yes, it is true that Labor and the Greens were bigger on the rhetoric. They promised a carbon-free New Zealand, but if you look actually at the reality of the progress that has been made on policies that actually are reducing emissions, we are making good progress. If we take the emissions trading scheme, Mr. Parker, if you take the emissions trading scheme, we need to be honest that actually New Zealand is only one of 8 countries outside of the EU that even puts a price on carbon, and the current price of carbon in New Zealand at over $18 per tonne actually compares with the EU of 7. In other words, there's a stronger financial incentive in New Zealand to reduce emissions. If you look at the electricity sector, under our government we've seen growth from 60% to renewable to now 90%, which contrasts with the previous government when actually it went in the opposite direction. I look at the programs about insulating homes. 500,000 homes insulated under program of this government, 15,000, 1-5, under the previous government. I look at the progress that Simon Bridges is making with the initiative of electric cars, where we've seen a 5-fold increase in the number of new electric cars. I look at the massive investment that Nathan Guy and Stephen Joyce is leading around the agricultural emissions, and you have a robust, solid and realistic approach to climate change that today is marked by the significant announcement of the ratification of that Paris Agreement.